Okay, folks, if you're looking for some guidance on doing a brake job, doing some work on a standard pickup truck where you run into snafus and issues like I did, let me tell you what, get prepared, sit back, grab some popcorn. This is gonna be wild. This thing needs a lot of love, a lot of work. Let's get to it. Okay, guys, we are still just cranking away on the miscellaneous projects I've got on the 2018 GMC Sierra. This is what I'm learning. I don't like that my MagneRide shocks, the actual shock inside the coilover mechanism on the front end, does appear to be weeping. It's a little wet, like the MagneRide's potentially blown out. I've got a seal in the suspension that's potentially allowing it to weep. The truck does not ride like it should with proper, well-functioning MagneRide suspension. It's quite rough. The torsion keys are slightly turned up just to give the truck a raked level look. That really shouldn't play that big of a factor in how the suspension functions, in my opinion. I do have a tire size that's slightly larger. I do have a Michelin tire on it. It is the Defender LTX. It is a 305/45 with the stock 22-inch rim. So, I've got a couple things I need to decide on. I pulled the wheels off because I wanted to take a look at the brakes. The brakes look like, well, let me get a light and I'll tell you exactly what's going on the front brake. So for sure, we are on the lower side for the pad life. Well, okay, yeah. So it does need brake pads. This sucks. It needs brake pads on the rear for sure. The fronts are within a reasonable limit, but if I'm going to be this far in the project where I'm going to be actually bleeding my brakes, flushing the brake fluid out as I talked about in one of my other videos, I'm a firm believer in doing that and making sure that you're running high quality, diluted with condensation. I don't want water and moisture inside my brakes. So I have to kind of make a decision here. I'm going to weigh out all my options. The truck is filthy. I did that on purpose because I drive down a dirt road and it's kind of wet out. It's been thawing. We did have snow on the ground. Things were very frozen, but it's also very soupy and messy and gross to get in the shop. So all that to be said, I think I'm going to pull geez, I don't have a whole lot of time to do all this. I'm going to look and see what the cost of replacing the suspension is. I think it's asinine and I probably am going to skip it, but I'm going to take a look. Before I go to bleed the brakes and take that path, I am going to consider pulling pricing on just replacing my brake pads for all four corners. The rotors aren't beautiful, but they're certainly not warped. I think there's definitely life left in them. They have a little bit of surface rust on the surface that's not touched by the actual brake pad. So I believe I will keep the rotors. I might dust them up with some paint just to make them look a little bit cleaner and prettier. And then when I have my new pads in and I've pushed all my fluid back up in the reservoir inside the engine bay, I will suck that fluid out because I'll have all the brake fluid I can pushed out when the pads are fully, or the calipers are fully opened up again. Get that brake fluid pulled out, put in the fresh fluid, pull in that fresh fluid through all the lines, start at the furthest corner away from the truck when I'm bleeding the brakes. And feel good about some of the improvements I've made thus far with that being done. I'm going to take a look at suspension. I'll update you guys if I do go that route. We're going to get the brake fluid changed. I do have a leaking tire. That is this tire, so I have to bring this wheel and tire just up the street to have the tire shop reseat it onto this wheel. I'm not sure if I have something in the bead, if I have a slow leak like a pinhole somewhere. But the leak's a little bit excessive and I got to get rid of that, so I'm going to get the tire reseated. Hopefully there is not bad news that will come from that. There's plenty of tread life in the tires, but if I'm going to be doing all this work, I want the truck to be functioning as efficient and perfectly as possible. And then while I've got the wheel off, I'm going to hit my grease zerks on the front end. I'll take a peek at the drive shaft, make sure there's not grease zerks I should hit in the drive shaft. I don't think there's many other servicing points on this truck for greasing it, unless of course you've done things like ball joints where you would potentially have a grease zerk up top here, but that's not serviceable on this truck because it is OEM, it's stock. That's a lot of talking. That's my update on what's going on so far. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna do a little bit of computer digging and research, and then this is a job and a half. We'll go from there. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you for watching thus far. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon. Okay, folks. I'm going to just take off this side. I've got the pads installed on the other side of the truck. But just for the sake of showing you guys what I'm doing here, some of the kind of nice to do steps when you're changing your brake pads, I'll show you what I do. Those of you who know how to do this, there's obviously two ways you can do it. You can take the whole caliper off, and then you can obviously pull the rotor off if you're doing rotors too. The rotors don't look good because of where I live, but they are good, so I'm not going to yank them. I'm just going to break this free here, and then we're going to, I just use an old pad, so it's time to change them. I just grab a C-clamp, throw it over this. Nice to use a little bit of brake clean, of course, when you're cleaning this stuff up. That's a smart thing to do. I would recommend you do that. We're just compressing the cylinder now, pushing in the two cylinders, trying to do it as evenly as possible. Then I'm gonna suck all that fluid out of the reservoir once I've got these fronts pushed back in. All right, kind of running into a problem here. So brake surface on this side, see how nice and wide it is? Looks great. I moved my trash can where I was chipping away at just the edge of where the rust is here. I was just cleaning up in here, and on the inside of the rotor, without looking too closely, I realized we got a real problem here. There's like no surface for the brake to ride. That's how rusty and gross this rotor got. I don't think that can be surfaced. It's pitted. It is so bad. No wonder the brake was shot, because it was just grinding against rust. The truck is not that bad. I mean, the rust condition, it's surface rust. That's pretty significant in my opinion. So I know the truck's filthy. You guys are probably seeing how horrible it actually looks, but I mean, we don't have rust on the rocker. The truck itself is actually in really good condition. That's just crazy. There must have been just enough corrosion taking place. It's difficult to pressure wash in behind your wheel on the backside of your rotor to get that cleaned up all the time, but that's gonna have to be done. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at the other side here. Let's see, how bad was this one? I already replaced the pads on this one. Yeah, it's not good. That's no bueno. We're gonna be replacing front rotors. Might as well take a peek at the back. Okay, well, I guess let this be a lesson to you guys. If your front of your rotor looks good, that doesn't mean the back is also good. Let's get this rotor off. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and suck out this old brake fluid. Get that old junk out of there. Okay, when I ran into the snafu with the front rotor being completely destroyed on the backside, I just wanted to pull the pad off. So I took this caliper off, yanked the back pad, because obviously we can see the front of the rotor, and it is pretty grooved. So these brakes are just due, and it's time to change them. I picked up pads, and I have rear rotors now, same as the front. They're the coated black rotor, so we'll have that rust prevention. Hopefully that'll last a little bit longer than 1 year of running these brakes. All right, this job's getting a little lengthy, so I'm gonna try to make this as quick as possible. I don't wanna waste our time. So I've greased the shafts that are the slides for the caliper onto the rotor, anti-seize behind the new rotor. That's fantastic. We've got our clips here for our new pads, so I'm gonna get these pressed on. Once I get this bolted back in place, then we can set our caliper in place and be good to go with some fresh new brakes on the truck. Just unfortunate, of course, as I was discussing and telling you guys how brutal this unfortunately the cost of this has become, because I was just going to spend $100 and something bucks on some silly old brake pads and end up being $550 just for the calipers, to have coated calipers, because rust is such a concern or issue. I don't want to have this problem again, and that's what we're working with. So of the caliper, some vehicles you need to twist and screw in your rear caliper because of the e-brake. E-brake is inside with a brake shoe behind the rotor, so I'll be able to just gently compress this caliper. If you're tuning in and watching this video and you somehow missed that these rotors are not painted, this is a coating that is put on from the manufacturer That coating is not paint. Do not paint your rotor. This rotor is designed that when the brake pad's gonna hit where the coating is, it'll wear off, that'll break in, you'll seat your pads on the rotors. You can't paint your rotors where your brake pads are gonna sit because you will not have brakes. So that is just the little PSA I'm gonna give you guys. Don't do that. That'll give you big problems. These rotors are specifically coated with a coating that will wear off where the brake pad's seating. This is a rust inhibited coating, so we don't have problems in the future with excessive rust. This truck, I don't think the brakes were ever done, not the pads, but I don't think the rotors were ever replaced. That's why the rears were so grooved, they had to be replaced. The fronts were so rusty because the truck has never had the rotors done, and it almost has 100,000 miles on it. So we've got one corner left, then we're done with the brakes. My gosh, I'm gonna do that off video, so we're just done with this. We can move on to the next step, and hopefully this YouTube video will be entertaining. We'll see you soon. Okay, all the brake calipers are compressed. I have sucked all of the old fluid out of the reservoir. I did that in 2 stages, compressed the fronts, pulled out the fluid, did the rears, pulled out that fluid. So now we have new fluid going in, and then we're gonna start in the back right corner of the truck. We're gonna start drying fluid through so we can have fresh brake fluid throughout the whole vehicle. Okay, we got our vacuum pump hooked up, cracked the line, just started to pull some of the fluid through, and look at how dark that brake fluid is. So as you saw, we filled up the reservoir. It is basically clear. This is gonna be a huge improvement to get rid of that old, grungy, dirty brake fluid. So we're gonna go ahead and start pulling some of this through the lines. Okay, we've moved on to the back left, the driver's side. This thing pumping now. Just gotta hold on there a little bit. Here we go. Oh man, is that dirty. Holy cow. Yep, filthy. Just filthy. So you guys can see that. That is some dirty, dirty brake fluid. Just gross. Gonna be a big improvement to the brake feel, for sure. Okay, next we are in the wheel well for, this is the passenger side front. These do tend to be a little bit risky with their, oh, we're good. Okay, now we are on the closest corner to the reservoir. That's where we're gonna end off. Just gotta get this to crack loose. Here we go. We're gonna get this on here. Hold our fluid through. Okay, we've got a Canon air filter. It is filthy, so I'm gonna soak this, get this cleaned up. It's clean on this side, where it's obviously putting the clean air in the engine, but that's gotta get cleaned up. I'm in the process now of getting a tire repaired because we have a slow leak, and now we're gonna change the oil. I like to run Molygen with the Molygen Motor Protect in this engine. Used to run Ceratec with the Molygen, but after having a conversation with Liqui Moly, Ceratec does not blend well with Molygen. So we're learning as we go here. Okay, we've got our oil filter off. We've been draining the oil. I'm gonna go ahead and get oil filter tossed back in. Just getting the O-ring lubed up. Now we're gonna go underneath the engine here. Got our surface cleaned up where the oil filter is gonna go. Just put a little bit of oil on here just to prevent any type of potential dry start. I'm not really too worried about that. I like to run AC Delco oil filters. I buy a pack of, I think, 12. That on there nice, not too snug, that's good. That's all we need. Perfect. We'll wipe off our surface for the drain plug, where that goes. Get things cleaned up under here a little bit, and we'll be set. This is the Molygen Motor Protect. We're gonna toss this wonderful stuff in. Give ourselves that little added protection, since this Molygen oil does not play well with Ceratec. basically wasting money on that protection. So we are gonna go ahead and dump this beautiful additive right on in with this Molygen oil change. Okay, now we're going to do a little tool cleanup. I've got to get the oil back on the air filter once the air filter is completely dried out. It is nice and clean, so that is going to definitely help with how happy the truck is going to be running. I'm going to be very happy to have that be completed. I need this to torque the wheels still. Toolmay sent me these open-end box wrenches, these ratcheting ones. Goes all the way up to a 25, which is pretty stinking awesome. So, big fan of the Toolmay's open-end box wrench set. Had to use the 21 on the brakes, so that was pretty sweet. Got that tucked away in the toolbox, which is great. Tools could definitely be a little bit more organized, but project. Got our ratchets, we'll stuff the ratchets away. There's always something. Alright, I'm going to keep that out. I can put this in the top drawer also. So, kind of wrapping up the truck maintenance for the most part. Feel pretty good with the amount that was completed. Definitely glad I didn't just jump in the truck and take it for a super long drive. Seeing how bad everything was. So, definitely want to have that reliable and in good shape. I can appreciate that now. That's huge. Huge. This can go in a different drawer. Actually, I've got a couple torque wrenches. I'm probably a little bit overstocked on torque wrenches, I think. Okay.